Hey YouTube, Awesome Rider here. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Phantom Ranger, one of the great mysteries of the Power Rangers world. The Phantom Ranger, first introduced in the Turbo series, is effectively their sixth Ranger. This video is not going to be a debut about what constitutes a sixth Ranger or a secondary rider, so just get out of here with that right now. He debuted in Turbo, he made some reoccurring appearances in Space, and his identity has always remained a mystery. Though he was introduced with a mystery identity like the Gold Zeo Ranger, his identity was never revealed. There were several different options given over the years, both from fan theories and some behind-the-scenes interviews by people with the show. Billy, Zordon's son, maybe another Eltarian, someone who kind of encapsulates all the spirits of dead Rangers, Agatha all along, all kinds of different options. But ultimately, it was never revealed. Until recently, in the Power Rangers comics world, we have gotten more information on his backstory and lore. It was hinted at in other series such as Power Rangers Unlimited, but it wasn't until Power Rangers Universe, which was a 6-issue miniseries that delved into both his origins as well as the mysterious origins of the Squadron Rangers and their origins into something else. I'm going to talk about what exactly was revealed about the Phantom Ranger in this series, kind of distilling it down to this one video. Going to go over the history of what happened, and then I will just give my brief thoughts at the end. So the Phantom Ranger was once actually called the Morphinaut, and he wore a basically very similar suit except it was done up in all white gold. And thousands of years ago on this really creatively named planet 0117 or 0117, I can't remember, in the A47 galaxy. Creative. He was researching a proto-arch to enter the morphing grid so that he could find an energy source to help all kinds of people. However, when he was in there, there was a mysterious shadow on the fringes of it, which was Dark Spector, who was attempting to gain access to the morphing grid. And he shut the whole thing down. And in the process, there was an explosion and he became trapped, as he wanted to prevent Dark Spector from being able to gain access to the morphing grid. Over 500 years later, there was an attack on the same planet on the Master Forge. And when this happened, the Morphonaut was spit out of the gate, and he was now imbued and infused with a ton of grid energy, and he was found by the youths that would become the Squadron Rangers, and together they were trying to figure out a way to stop Dark Spector's forces that were attacking at that moment and gain access to the grid that everyone was ascending to. They discovered that they needed to channel some of Morphonaut's excess morphing grid energy, both to help him because of how much he was channeling, and also to help themselves by giving themselves power. 6 individuals were able to channel the power as conduits through the 6 of them, which resulted in them morphing into Rangers. However, they were left in an unstable state that saw them shifting between various Ranger forms that we know. Because the grid exists in the multiverse, all time happening at once, these forms are of Rangers that did not exist yet. Because the grid is timeless, they kind of all existed at that moment, if that makes any sense. But this video is not about them. Bottom line is, they were shifting randomly between these forms, they needed to stabilize themselves, they created morphers to stabilize themselves, and that's how they became the Squadron Rangers. Again, this video is not about them, but their story is important to this. Anyway, the Morphonaut and the Squadron Rangers continue to fight Dark Spector's forces to stop him from gaining access to the grid. As we find out, the morphing grid and the energy of the morphing grid is the all-time weakness of Dark Spector. It's effectively his antithesis, and he wants to gain access to it via someone that can gain access to it to destroy it, thus destroying his weakness. One of the ways he attempts to go about this is by corrupting individuals. He does this by getting in their mind, taking root via their negative energies, and at one point he tries to do this with the Squadron Rangers. They're all arguing, and he's slowly gaining a foothold in each one of them as you see them being corrupted. The Morphonaut will not stand for this, as he feels a great deal of guilt over his involvement in this situation, drawing Dark Spector to the gates, and he offers himself up as the vessel for Dark Spector to save his friends. Using his negative emotions over the entire situation, Dark Spector accepts, and he takes on a corrupted version of a very familiar form, transforming his suit into the familiar black and silver, albeit a corrupted version. The Rangers need to find a way to stop Dark Spector from accessing the grid, as well as hopefully save their friend the Morphonaut. In order to do this, come to the conclusion that if they channel the grid energy as conduits in unrestrained fashion, they would be able to do this. However, in order to do so, they must shatter their morphers or their hearts, sending a surge of grid energy through them and the planet, which effectively saturates their whole planet in grid energy, which kicks Dark Spector off the premises. And by the premises, I mean both the planet, which is now permanently kind of irradiated in grid energy, as well as the premises of Morphonaut's body. And now, the Morphonaut now takes on a similar appearance. Basically, he has the Phantom Ranger's look with the black and silver, except minus the ruby. Now, where does the ruby come in? Well, the Squadron Rangers have now been transformed into these beings that are shifting between Ranger forms, much like they did when they first became Rangers, except now it's constant. The former Squadron Rangers now have a higher calling and are higher grid beings. They take the shattered pieces of their hearts to construct what we know as the Phantom Ranger's Ruby. They give him a fraction of the Morphin Grid energy and power that he had before, and they say that he is now a phantom of what he once was, but now thanks to that he has enough energy to enter the grid. They send him through a portal where he meets Zordon of Eltar, which obviously inevitably leads to him becoming a great ally to Zordon in the adventures that we know of, or at least a version of them in the future. So that's what we have overall. But in regards to the Phantom Ranger, honestly, I kind of like what they did here. You know, I think that no matter what the answer ended up being, people would have been disappointed because the hype had been building up for decades, and it probably would have been more exciting for some people if he was somebody we knew or tied to somebody we knew. But I think what they did was ultimately kind of cool. It gave him actually a little bit more character and tied him deep to Grid and Ranger lore, which was really cool. But because we don't still know exactly who he was before he was the Morphonaut, we don't know what his face looks like, we didn't know about his personal life, he still retains a bit of that mystique. So in a way, we kind of get to have our cake and eat it too. He still remains a little bit of a mystery, but we know a little bit more about him. And it's also worth noting that this was all revealed within the comics universe, so if your purist senses are tingling and you really don't like this, you can just say, well, this was only for the comics universe, and you can still imagine that the show universe is different. Although personally, I consider any lore introduced in the comics to be identical to the Prime universe. But yeah, that's what we have. But until next time, don't forget to like this video if you enjoy it, and hit that subscribe button and that bell button to get more notifications for videos like this and more. Dawson Ryder, signing out.